Hi there, Richard Solomon, Paul Solomon, Taking Care of Business, your hosts. We have a very, very interesting show today. We're going to be talking about tax. Now, what I remember when I went to law school, I went to a law school in Washington, D.C., and we were very, very close to the tax court. So to be a smarty, I went over to the court, I took my tax book, I stamped it denied. I actually went to the judge's desk and it said, denied, because it was the tax court in D.C. I brought it to my professor and I said, and he was a great professor, Professor Weidenbrook. I said, hey, Professor Weidenbrook, I deserve an A in this class. And he said, how come? And I said, I got it all boiled down to one statement. He goes, what's that? I opened up the book and it says, D.C., tax court denied. So actually, I don't remember, but I did well because I really enjoyed the course. I guess I always was the philosophy that, when you take the word the IRS and you put it together, it's theirs. So, so that's all you really kind of need to know. So it's just theirs.
Very creative perspective.
And then I guess Paul Solomon's here, our co-host. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
And Paul teaches his children about tax during Halloween. And what he does is when they go trick-or-treating, he assembles the pot of gold, as you will, and he assembles all the little pieces of candy, and then he starts removing the ones that he wants. And they say, hey, that's not fair. And he says, this is the perfect time for us to talk about taxation and representation and fairness. So in that regard, so who do we have here today? We have two phenomenal guests. These are people I actually know personally. They are phenomenal people. If by any chance you get in a little bit of a jam, you must rush, not walk, you must rush to these people. So who do we have? We have Karen Tenenbaum. It's Karen J. Tenenbaum, PC, and their website is litaxattorney.com. And we have Yvonne Cort. These people know their stuff like nobody else. I know that the bar is not allowed to allow me to say all kinds of things, so I'm restrained, but they really know what they're doing, okay? So like if I were to have an IRS problem or a New York State tax problem, these are the first and only people I would be running to. In fact, I would call them at Sunday night at 1 in the morning if I couldn't wait until Monday morning to get my answers, the answers to my questions.
Thanks, Rich.
So here we go. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, and I don't know how we're going to get it all in an hour, but I guess this is like trying to put 10 pounds of sand in a 5-pound bag. I know there's other analogies to that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, quickly, your background. You were a glutton for punishment, Karen. You went to law school, you got an accounting degree, you got an LLM in tax. Couldn't just stop
Well, I always wanted to help small businesses, so this was the way to do it. Get all the degrees, have a great background.
Okay. And so how long have you been doing this whole tax thing?
Yeah, I'm doing this 30 years.
Wow. And then Yvonne Cort, it seems to be always publishing something. I get these alerts of articles that you write. So you're always writing something. So I'm sure if you typed in Google or some other search engine, YVONNECORT, you'll see like 7,000 articles just up till today.
Well, I've written a bunch. I wouldn't say 7,000, but you'll find a few if you Google me.
Well,
sure.
By the time the show airs, you'll be up to that. So. All right.
I always say she's the writer in the family.
So for those out there, I attended a continuing legal education that Karen was a part of over here at the LIU Post Campus on tax. And let me tell you something. It was scary, okay?
I'll tell you, I really enjoyed that. They had a great group of people. They had someone from New York State, a representative came down from Albany to talk about tax collection. And to hear it from them is really amazing.
Yeah, what they did was they took somebody from the audience, they turned them upside down by the ankles, they kept on shaking, and then when they said, hey, there's nothing left, they said, oh, good, now we're done.
I'll tell you, I've never laughed so much talking about tax. This is great.
Well, you know what it is? You got to have a little bit of humor, because we've seen how scary the process is. Levies, executions.
Right, they pull money out of your bank account. They take your salary.
And we're here to help you figure out what to do about those things and to stop those things from happening.
How many times have you gotten phone calls, literally from somebody that says, they took everything, or all my assets are frozen, and then they call you?
Right, regularly.
Right.
Daily.
And they always say, I didn't get notice, I had no idea. and all of a sudden everything's all locked up and they don't know what to do. Right.
Exactly
All
right.
All right. So let's start with topic one, but there's going to be 7,000 topics, just like your article count. And not only that, this is going to be like moving all over the place. So,
Well, the collection issue the collection issues that
Yeah.
you're bringing up, we could talk about after.
right.
But I think we
So-
should start with something that seems to be very common these days with New York State, and they're coming after a lot of people claiming that they live here when the people claim they live somewhere else, perhaps in Florida or perhaps New Jersey, Connecticut. They have an apartment in the city and they have a house out in the Hamptons, and New York State says you live here and pay the taxes here. And we always say it's the hidden cost of the apartment in New York City, because it could be for your daughter. And they're coming after you because you have the deep pockets. And last year alone, they made over $220 million on these residency audits alone.
wow.
They have people who are snowbirds who go to Florida for the winter, for example, and if you ask them, they say, oh, yes, of course I live in Florida, and I just come back to New York. And New York State says, no, 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 we think you're still a New York State resident, and we're going to tax you on your worldwide income.
I know, because
And that's the key here. Why does it even matter? Because if New York State says that you're a resident here, you're taxed on all of your income, no matter what the source is. If you're a non-resident, it's only New York source income, your wages that you
so
earned
that's a big
here.
deal.
Very big.
Because I know that in real estate, what you see a lot of is people have, say, a rent-controlled, rent-stabilized apartment, and they've had it for a very, very long time, and then they have some other venue going on. Maybe it's a house in the Catskills or something else like that. And if you tend not to be around enough in New York, the spotters notice that, and then they look to throw you out of your rent-controlled apartment, claiming that you're not there so many days, it's not your primary residence or whatever it is, and then they look to take that apartment and decontrol it so it's now in the free market, and that could also be very, very expensive. So probably this is the two sides of the same coin, which is I'm living in Manhattan in a rent-stabilized apartment. I'm living in Florida for the winter because it's a little chilly. And now you have both you've lost your apartment kind of thing on one hand, perhaps, but on the other hand, New York State may say, well, you were here long enough to have to pay all your income. So,
Well,
so how do you deal with that?
So first of all, you're bringing up a very interesting point, which is sometimes people take inconsistent positions. They say, this is my primary residence, give me a rent-controlled apartment, and yet they're saying, I don't really live in New York. And New York takes a look at that. They have guidelines that they came out with about a year ago, and one of the factors is, are you taking an inconsistent treatment? When you sell your house, are you claiming it's your primary residence? Are you claiming your rent-controlled apartment? Or do you have a New York City parking exemption, meaning you live in New York City? So a lot of these issues come up regularly. But we should probably step back and give a bigger overview of what we're talking about. So we mentioned that it matters because of the tax aspects, meaning you're taxed on all of your income, and if you're a non-resident, you're only taxed on your income that's allocated here, so like wages that are earned in the state.
Or rent from real estate in New York State would be New York source income, for example.
And they tax you if you're deemed a resident. So let's define what that means. One, you could be domiciled here, or two, you could be a statutory resident. To be a statutory resident, all you need is a permanent place of abode, this apartment we're talking about in the city, or a vacation home in the Hamptons, and spend more than 183 days here. So, for example, if you live in Connecticut and you work in New York City, but you have a house in the Hamptons, you have this issue. You don't even realize you have this issue. And the day count, the timing, doesn't have to be time spent out in that in the Hamptons house. You could only be there in the summer or for 2 weeks in the summer, and it counts against you because you have what they deem as a permanent place of abode.
Wow.
How is the count determined?
So they assume you're here every single day of the year, and it's the taxpayer's burden by clear and convincing evidence. You have to prove where you are every single day of the year. So if you're in your backyard gardening, you have a problem. How do you prove where you are? You don't have a calendar note that you had a meeting, and you don't have a credit card bill, so you have a problem.
GPS?
So
GPS logs?
Interestingly, you could be the GPS on your phone. They look at phone records that has a GPS signal in there, and where it was pinging off the cell towers, that can make a difference.
I guess I could Federal Express my phone to someone out, from Florida.
That's always a risk. It just is one of the ways. It helps to have several kinds of evidence to substantiate. You can keep contemporaneous calendars and diaries. You can have credit card receipts to support that. And then there's also credible evidence if it ever gets to trial. You can
Credible
testify,
testimony, yeah.
credible testimony,
Right.
yes.
Or the kidnapping model, which is every day you take a picture of yourself with the newspaper, that
New York
says
Times.
right, the New York Times of the day
Well, that
in
means
Times
that you're
Square.
here, right? Then you're here. Then you want to prove you want to do it in Florida, that you're not here.
I have heard of people who say they buy a stick of gum every day to show a credit card receipt for purchasing it every day. But
But they do. They look at Easy Pass records. They look at, are you taking money out of an ATM? Where is the ATM machine? Now there's a new app that you could get on your phone, Moneo, that keeps track of where you are, and that's just one additional piece of evidence. And people say, oh, well, maybe you left it at home. You purposely left it at home in Connecticut or New Jersey, or you attached it to your dog so that it shows motion there. And New York State has said that they're going to just look at it as one more piece of evidence.
Now, I remember when we went to the seminar unrelated to this radio show, that was the great seminar that we were just talking about previously, that if you're like in New York for 1 hour, does that count?
not even an hour, even any time in New York, any part of a day counts as a day in New York. There are people who, they drive into the city and get there at 10 to midnight before they stay at their New York City apartment. That's 2 days, the 10 minutes before midnight, and then when they wake up in the morning, it's 2 days.
Now, day count's a big issue, but that's really when you have this statutory residency issue. But domicile is a big issue as well. And if you go to an estate planning attorney in Florida, they'll give you a list of things that they suggest that you do. Change your voter registration, your license, those kinds of things, and your will. And really, those are other factors that are considered. What's really necessary to look at are the primary factors. Where's your home? Where are your business interests? Where are your items near and dear? Where is your family? And where do you spend your time? And this is not the 183 days. So if you like to, you're retired, let's say, you moved to Florida, and you like to travel. The time you spend in New York compared to Florida is what they're going to look at, not the time you spend in Europe or on a cruise.
So let's say I have a vacation home in Iceland, all right? So how much of it is, well, and then I have one in Florida and one in New York, or I'm just go to a hotel in Iceland, because I'm a big fan of Reykjavik, and I want to hear of Monsters and Men singing live, in local. So how does that count, the ratio between, say, New York, Florida, and then just not being here at all?
Right, so if we're looking at domicile, remember, if you're domiciled here, you're taxed on all your income. You don't have to look at this 183-day rule or whether you have this permanent place of abode. So they're going to look at, do you still have ties here? So you once had a home here, it's your historic home, do you still have the home here? Compare this home to your home somewhere else. Size, value, use. Now let's look at your business interests. Let's say you had a closely held business and now you still get called on a regular basis. You're involved in it on a day-to-day basis. They need your approval for different contracts. You have a problem. You still have a connection to, a very strong connection to New York. It's a weighing scale. They're going to compare everything in New York to everything where you claim your domicile is. And the taxpayer has the burden of proof if they're the one claiming to have moved out of New York. New York has it if they're the one claiming you've moved back into New York.
Because when we're looking at domicile, we're looking at where is your home, where is your heart, which place do you feel closest to, which is the place you want to return to whenever you're away, what do you really have a connection with. And there's been some cases recently from the New York State Department of Tax and Finance that have said basically people have to show that they have ties to their new area. They have to prove that they really are located in the new area. It's not just that they have a house there, but they really feel tied to the community and it's part of their life now.
And now they have the STAR exemption. They changed it so that it's actually, you now have to register with the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance in order to get that deduction and claim that it's your primary residence in New York. So we were discussing inconsistent treatment. Now you're going to have to renew it every single year and state that either New York is your primary residence or it's not.
Now, what do you get? Well, school tax relief, right? STAR, school
Yes.
tax relief. What is the STAR exemption? What is that? What do you get for that? It's like it's an offset against your taxes and property. Oh,
On your real estate taxes, it's an offset. Like, for example, let's just assume you have a cooperative in Queens and you do not have STAR. Whereas your next door neighbor has STAR. Many co-ops will then levy an assessment equal to your STAR tax. So Northeast Queens co-ops, you'll get, let's say, $50 off. You, by not registering for STAR, or if your property is not owned by you, but let's say a trust or something, you may not be eligible for it. You can only have STAR in one location, and it's a big issue because the amount of property tax that could be a differential can be great on certain properties.
Thank you, Paul Solomon. There you go. See, just a wealth of information at this table. We have 4 attorneys, so we have something like 120 years of information or whatever, loaded up here.
Now, this issue comes up when you would least expect it. So let's say you have a house for your parents or for your child. They may deem that your permanent place of abode. So you could actually be living somewhere else. But if you come in to work and spend more than 183 days here, and now they say that that's your permanent place of abode, you're going to be taxed here.
Does it matter whose house the title is in?
So
Title is just one of the things they look at. They look at a number of different things. It may look at whether you have unfettered access to the house. Can you come and go as you please? Whether it's a place where you keep your belongings. Do you keep your jacket hanging on a hanger in the closet and your toothbrush in the bathroom? And then it may be considered your permanent place of abode.
mere ownership alone is not enough.
Wow. And on that note, our first segment is rapidly closing, so we will be right back. So stay here. Don't go away. This show is going to blaze through. This hour is going to go in a blink. We're here with Karen Tenenbaum, Yvonne Cort, Paul Solomon, Rich Solomon. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business with Paul Solomon and our tax expert panel. We have Karen J. Tenenbaum and Yvonne Cort from litaxattorney.com. Is that right?
That's right.
All right, cool. See? And Walter the Vault. We'll talk about Walter the Vault. Vault of the Vault. We'll talk about that in a little bit. By the way, there's a special YouTube video, and it's actually a video, just on Walter the Vault. That'll be separately posted, but these two topics kind of coincide. So, as we were last talking, we were talking about the brutality of the IRS and other collection agencies. I guess maybe they learned some of their secrets from the KGB, for example.
Well, the taxing authorities need money too.
Right.
So they're aggressive.
So everything they learned,
They
they
get
learned
very
at like
creative.
Spandau Prison. So, so let's talk a little bit about driver's license collections, levies, all the nasty things.
Okay, so New York State is so smart. They said, you know what? All these people owe us a lot of money, and how are we going to get their attention? Everyone needs to drive, so we're going to suspend their driver's license if they don't pay taxes. So right now, they've been sending out letters, and if you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, and you're not making arrangements with the state to address the debt, they are notifying you that you could have your license suspended. And we've been getting a lot of phone calls about this, and again, you could contact us at info@litaxattorney.com or call us at 631-465-5000.
Do that again, because as people are driving, because some of these people are listening on FM as well as sort of on the computer. The people on the computer just wrote this down, but the people who are driving on Northern Boulevard, could you just give that phone number a little slower? Could you give me that number just a little slower?
Okay,
631.
so I don't know if this is attorney advertising. We'll
It is, but
we'll give that disclaimer.
It is, but
as
it's cool.
attorney
But
advertising.
it's cool because it's on my radio show.
Okay, but
So
we've been,
it's really news.
so if you want to email us, first of all, you could go to our website, litaxattorney.com. If you want to email us, you could either write to Kate Tenenbaum at litaxattorney.com, ycort, C-O-R-T, at litaxattorney.com.
Could you spell out your email address?
Sure, or info@litaxattorney.com, or call us at 631-465-5000. We're located in Melville, and it's Karen J. Tenenbaum, PC, is the law firm.
So litaxattorney.com, because we're on Long Island.
All right. So, by the way, this kind of ties in. I have, NYCTruckSummons.com, and this is all important to truck drivers because you never know, because their livelihood depends on their
Well, they're
commercial
accept-
their license. Now, I know there's an exception because I watched your
There-
class. There's an exception for commercial driver's licenses, but not every commercial driver actually has a commercial license.
Well, the exception is written into the law for commercial driver's licenses.
Right, but that's a special class of
Yeah,
license.
there can be some modifications on the suspension, for example, going to and from work, things like that. But if you enter into a resolution with New York State, such as setting up an installment payment agreement, applying for an offer in compromise, submitting an innocent spouse application, really, New York State is doing this to get your attention so they can work out the debt. They really want to get the money.
They want you to come forward. That's really what it's all about.
Well, I don't want to come forward. Do I just go to Pennsylvania and get a license there? I mean, or I mean, seriously, like, let's say you just, you know how every part, your corporation's under threat, you close down, start another one. That's what everybody does. So can the can someone who's a motorist just get a driver's license elsewhere, or all the computers tied into each other and you can't do that?
I wouldn't, that's not something we would suggest people do. People should come forward and pay their
I know,
taxes
but
when they owe their
this is
taxes.
radio, so I could ask the
Look,
question.
try and resolve your issue, and if you can't, the truth is they could take other collection action anyway.
Which would include
So whether
what?
or not you're getting a license somewhere else, you have to deal
Yeah.
with what's going on in New York State. In fact, New York State has a list of the top 250 individuals and businesses who have warrants. So anyone could go.
Is that on the web?
It's absolutely on the New York State website, and the Department of State has all of the warrants. So even a small amount that's owed to New York State, if it's warranted, it's public information, and anyone could go and Google it.
Where would you find this? Is this under New York State warrants?
It's under New York State Department of State website.
For the warrants.
Oh, really?
For the warrants, yes.
Oh, wow.
So we could look you up.
Wow. And
Watch
there's
out.
little pictures of jail.
No pictures.
And it stays on there, so even if it's satisfied or vacated, it'll note that it's satisfied or vacated, but it'll still be on that list.
Wow.
The list is updated, I believe, every month. So if you enter into an installment agreement, with direct debit, they'll take you off. They'll indicate it's that I guess there's a deal. Well, they'll take you off the top 250 list.
Yes, they do take you off once you enter into some
That's
kind of
what
a
it is.
resolution, yes.
So it's a variation of public shaming, like the John
the wall-
Hour with Ed Koch.
They actually call it the Wall of Shame. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Now, I'm sure some people take pride in this, but
Now, I have to say, I looked at the list. Some of my clients are on the list.
and I guess, wow. I guess, getting on that list is probably an incredible stain, because what you're basically saying is it's kind of like a tattoo, because once it's on, it really never comes off. You can kind of scrub and try to laser it up, but it's still there.
Well, there is a way that if you've just had a warrant filed, you may be able to get it vacated if you can pay it promptly, and if you're a good faith taxpayer who hasn't had a lot of problems in the past. New York State has a program now that they may be able to get it vacated.
And what that means is, oops, we made an error. It's almost as if it still will be on the record. It'll still be there.
Wow. Now, what?
But they're willing to at least
They're willing
note
to at
that
least-
it's vacated. That it's vacated.
I'm a little confused, and maybe members of our audience would be as well. Is a tax warrant like a criminal warrant? Can they come and arrest me? What does that really mean if I have a tax warrant on me?
It's a lien. It's public record that you owe money, and that it's a judgment against you,
Now,
and it sets their priority.
and it's immediately executable. They can just take that and grab anything.
So well, that's very interesting, because New York State always had to file a warrant before they could take any collection action. And this year they came out with a warrantless income execution. So now they could go after your salary for the first time without getting a warrant first. Now,
Right.
I believe that list is going to be public, just like the warrants are public. That list of income executions is now going to be public.
Wow. What are the time limits for collection, and when? So let's say I've done a bad thing. How long do I keep looking in the rearview mirror and sweating it before I'm in the clear?
So the IRS has a 10-year collection statute, and New York State is 20 years. And it used to be that the 20 years in New York would continue to renew every time you acknowledged it or made some kind of payment, even if it was not voluntary. So even if they just took the money out of your bank account with a levy, that would renew the 20 years. So you could be in the 19th year, and they find out you have a bank account, take your money, and the 20 years starts again. But now they've changed the law, and at 20 years, it's over. It's 10 years against real estate, 20 years against personal property.
Wow, that's still a long time. That's still a long time to wait it out.
Well, what's interesting is that in the olden days, you could have something that started with a federal change. The IRS can only come after you for 10 years, but because of this moving target, the New York State can come after you forever, right? So let's say 20 years in or 19 years in, it renews for another 20 years. It could be 30 or 40 years later, and New York State's still coming after you when the IRS debt is gone, and it started because of the IRS debt.
So fortunately, New York State changed that law. The law was changed, and now it is limited to that 20 years. And the IRS has a limit of 10 years for collection in most cases.
All right. Now, can they just grab your car, for example? Could they just, what can they collect? I know obviously they love bank accounts because they have the computer tie-in and they can figure that all out. But let's say there's no bank account, and maybe you're a little bit more sophisticated or a little bit just down on your luck. What can they do, and what do they usually do?
Well, one of the things is the warrant from New York State and the liens from the IRS are filed against real estate, and often when someone goes to sell their house, they find that they have a lien or a warrant out there, and that needs to be addressed before they can transfer title, because no one's going to want to take the house with the with damaged title like that.
Let me ask my real estate expert, is that true?
Yes, in fact, I just had a situation where my client had proof from IRS that he paid the $2,000 that was owed, but it didn't make it into the New York City ACRA system, even though IRS sent it. But the geniuses at the city agency, I'm going to say this because it aggravated me to death, it took them 7 weeks to post it on their computer system, and it held up my closing. So even though we had the proof and all the documentation, until it was posted on the ACRA system, the title company would not let us close.
And sometimes we see the IRS or New York State sitting at the table at the closing.
With a knife and fork.
Remember, it's theirs.
Knife and fork, no napkin. They don't bring napkins.
And this comes up quite a bit, actually, when someone wants to do a refi on their house. They want to refinance, maybe to get a lower mortgage interest rate, and the bank is not willing to do the refi because the IRS lien comes in the way. So IRS will accommodate in many cases, and they will subordinate if there's a way that it's in the best interest of the IRS for them to do so.
But the most obvious way to get money is either out of a bank or a wage garnishment. So the IRS has a continuous wage levy, which is actually quite onerous because they take a very high percentage of the salary, whereas New York State only takes 10% of the gross.
Wait, how much does the IRS take?
There's a chart.
Basically, the IRS leaves the taxpayer with
A few crumbs.
With a few crumbs and takes the rest. Regardless of the amount of the salary that the taxpayer is getting, the IRS takes their amount, and the balance of that salary goes to the IRS. Whether it's, $2,000 a month or $10,000 a month, the balance will go to the IRS.
And it really, you can't survive on it financially with what's left. And it really forces you to come forward and negotiate a deal with the IRS.
Yeah.
And again, that's why the IRS does it. They go through a lot before they do a wage garnishment, the IRS. They send out lots of notices. They try to get your attention in other ways. And really, it's when the wage garnishment, the income execution comes, the person says, oh my gosh, my payroll department is keeping most of my paycheck this month or this week. I don't know what to do. And they call us so we can help them.
You sort of need to quit your job just to stay behind. So let me ask this question. As a lawyer, we see all kinds of things. I represent tons and tons and tons of very small businesses, mom and pops, and equivalents. What do you do in a situation where you have non-filers? Because I've come across that a lot, and people say to me, I kind of haven't filed in a while. I go, how long's a while? Maybe 4 or 5 years. And then, of course, my chest starts to hurt. And I'm like, oh, we gotta get this taken care of. And they're sort of afraid of coming onto the grid. They may have had a cash existence that they don't necessarily want to reveal. They may not be able to reconstruct all of the receipts and all the things that are necessary to balance, the cash versus the expense to offset the income. So what do you do with people who just forgot to file, haven't filed, were a little too busy, And I know, I'll tell you one quick story. I know that the IRS is very big on having people plead guilty in the month of March of every year because they want the press release to show Joe Smith just pleaded to 58 counts of tax fraud and is going to jail for 9 years, because they want those press releases in the paper to send a little subtle message like, hey, this could be you. So how does that work with the non-filers?
Well, you're very lucky because New York State has a voluntary disclosure program, and it's quite common for people to be non-filers and come forward under this program. You could do it right online, and the benefits are that there's a limited look-back period. They only request 3 to 6 years of returns depending on the situation. You get a penalty abatement and a protection against the criminal prosecution. So on the New York State level,
Right, but that's New York State, but what about the IRS?
I just want to add one more thing on New York State. It's only for people who have not yet been contacted by the state. So it's for people who voluntarily come forward. If New York State's already looking into you or already sending notices or doing an audit, then it's too late for the voluntary disclosure.
So if you feel the breathing on your neck from behind, you're too late.
Yeah, too late.
What triggers them to find you? Is there any?
what the audit selection is?
Yeah, like how do they know?
Number of-
What do they do to find the people who are non-filers? Obviously, there's so much digital content out there. They just kind of match everything up. But
Well, for example, if they do have forms sent in by third parties, for example, if someone gets wages and they think maybe it's off the books, but the employer sent in a W-2, not just to the taxpayer, but also to New York State and the IRS, then certainly that's going to cause the IRS or New York State to say, where's your tax return? The same thing with a 1099. If someone thinks they're an independent contractor, they just got some money and they thought it wasn't anything, but the person on the other side did send that form in. So there is all that matching going on.
And they share information, the IRS and New York State, and perhaps with the city and other states. And now they're doing a lot. I think New York State won an award because they do all this matching, digital matching.
They have a great computer system, and they do a lot of data mining. They're always on the lookout.
I wonder if they go onto Facebook and see on fabulous vacations, and they go, "Hey, I wonder how Rich Solomon afforded this."
Well, in fact, if they're already looking at someone, like doing an audit or seeking collection, they certainly do go online, and they look to see if what you've put in your papers is really what's happening.
They do a Google search. We've seen cases when people are trying to do that, pennies on the dollar to resolve their tax liability and put in for an offer and compromise where they need to have a review at the council's level, and people have Googled the taxpayers and seen reports where they'll be raving, "Oh, I just made all this money. I have this great deal coming up," and here we're claiming, or the taxpayer's claiming he has no income or no money.
Or somebody, the taxpayer has to put in how much his house is worth, and maybe he gets a relative to do the real estate appraisal. He says, just put down $100,000 for the value. Well, the IRS or New York State, they go online, they look at these things, and they would even send out their own appraiser sometimes. And, they want an accurate number. They'll look it all up.
Wow. I have to interject this because it's kind of funny. My father and I always joke about this. Homer Simpson is busted by the IRS on The Simpsons, and they said to him, "Well, the only way this will work is if you rat on your friends, and you'll have to work for us." And then Homer says, "Do you think you could pay me under the table?" So to what extent? To what extent is the snitch system working? Because I know there's bounties for people, and
There's a whole whistleblower statute.
I've actually had cases where people had their employees call the IRS on them, and then they've had tax problems. So that was sort of my intro to that. Is that as prevalent as I kind of feel it is? That there are people out there whistleblowing and reporting things?
We hear stories in the paper. I haven't personally handled any of those cases.
All right, you never know. All right. Oh, my God. We only have 2 minutes in this segment. So
I think we should tell you about the new streamlined installment agreements under the Fresh Start program for the IRS.
I love Fresh Starts.
Because anybody who owes $50,000 or less could now pay off that balance within 6 years and not have to give as much financial disclosure as they did in the past. And I think that's an unbelievable opportunity because a lot of people owe $50,000 or less. And so you could do that online at irs.gov, or you could call the collections department 800-829-3903.
And the nice thing is that you don't have to do an awful lot of financial disclosure. It goes through quite with a minimal amount of financial disclosure, why it's a streamlined process. And they may not need to file liens in all instances, and it can go pretty smoothly. And I would say if you owe more than $50,000, it may be a good idea to make a down payment to bring it down below that $50,000 number, so you can do this quick process.
Let me ask you this. I've often suggested this to clients, but I'm not sure if it's the best advice. But I always say, look, I don't like owing the IRS money. I don't like anything. Can you just borrow the money from somebody, a relative, friend, cousins, pull the money, get rid of them, get them off your back, and then deal with your relatives and everybody later. Because who wants the most ruthless collection agencies on your back, always looking for you, always being on the radar, always owing the money, and potentially, there's interest in other things
I'm just going to
accruing.
say interest continues to accrue along with penalties.
Right. So is that a good strategy? Just, call up Uncle Al and just say, hey, I need you to spot me a quick 50 so I can get rid of these people?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to try to get the money from another source. What many people don't realize, because they don't see the tax bill so quickly, is that the IRS has a lot more power than perhaps your Uncle Al or a credit card company.
Also, one strategy, if you're going to do an offer and compromise, is perhaps if the IRS has priority over New York State, go to New York State first and say, look, I am going to borrow from a friend or a family member, pay you, take what you could get right now, because otherwise the IRS is going to get it, and you're not going to get anything.
That's right, you're going to get scavoage. All right, that's a legal term. So we'll be continuing our tax journey with Karen J. Tenenbaum, Yvonne Cort, and your hosts, Rich Solomon, Paul Solomon, Taking Care of Business, TCBRadio.com. I'm saying it fast because we have so little time. See you all on the other side of this particular break. Hang in there, we'll be right back. Hi there, Richard Solomon, Paul Solomon, Taking Care of Business, your hosts this week, and we are talking tax, nasty tax collection, and brutality, and, shake you by the ankles until all the coins fell out of your pocket as you squeal in pain. Okay, so to help you through that process, we have our tax experts here, Karen J. Tenenbaum of Karen J. Tenenbaum PC, so they named the firm after her, and Yvonne Cort, and they are our tax machas, as they say in the law. And one of these segments that we did separately from this radio show is we did a YouTube segment on Walter the Vault. And Walter the Vault is a vehicle to teach children about financial responsibility, and I guess you guys call it financial literacy, but I kind of call it responsibility, because I kind of think that it goes hand in hand. One of the criticisms that I have about sort of the educational system out there is at no point in your life in school did they ever teach you about checkbooks, balancing a checkbook, spending money. You learn math, but and I guess the big problem is, since government overspends their budget, we don't have good examples in leadership of responsibility. So how do we teach the youth of today that maybe that in a generation or two from now we'll actually have balanced budgets in government and none of the overspending and all the voodoo that government does, which is like, well, we'll just borrow from Social Security and we'll pay it back later. How do we teach everybody financial literacy?
So it's so interesting that you say that, because as a tax attorney, I have seen firsthand the financial hardships that people get themselves into. So it's clear that we're all lacking in adequate financial skills. And the best way to avoid this is to teach them while they're young, so that they could grow into financially responsible adults. So the key is start young, make it fun, establish really good routines. And the government has realized the importance of this. The president has an advisory council on financial capability. And if you go to moneyasyougrow.org, there's a chart that shows what kids can learn at different ages, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, etc.
That sounds like prison sentence.
So I've been involved in a few different financial literacy initiatives geared actually to the younger child. So there are groups that are focusing on college, high school, maybe even middle school. I'm younger. So the AICPA has Feed the Pig, and that's more for the college age and high school age. Junior Achievement has something that's geared toward the high school and the middle schoolers. I started a program many years ago named commerceplaza.org that's geared toward 11-year-olds, 5th graders, and it's a program through participating school districts. They actually they have a 6-week curriculum in class, and then they go on a field trip that's a hands-on community. A hands-on experience where they run a business for the day, one of 10 businesses. Someone's the banker, someone's the lawyer, someone's the realtor, someone's the mayor, someone's head of the United Way, and the children role play all day long. And there's a bookkeeper in each business, that writes out the checks. You get a salary, $4.50. You take your check, you walk over to the bank. Capital One has funded it for the last few years, and you deposit your check into your account. Your 11-year-old friend is the teller, and then you could go shopping at all the other businesses. So it's actually quite fascinating.
If the children need vicious debt collectors, my brother and I are always available.
That's right. We need an IRS over there. But I also realized that there was no one teaching the younger children about money. So here we have 11-year-olds. They really get it. They come dressed for work. They're in their suits. They're ready to be whoever they are for the day. But who's teaching the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds? And I saw that there was a gap there. So we started the Walter the Vault initiative. Walter the Vault is an animated character that teaches fundamental financial skills. And the goal is to have a child keep a bank next to his bed every single night and ask his parents for money. And before he brushes his teeth and reads a book, and before he gets into bed, he says to his parents, "You have any change?" And he puts the change in
Spare
Walter.
change.
There you go. Put that change and get into that habit of saving the money every single night. I'm also chair of the Financial Literacy Committee of the Nassau chapter of the New York State Society of CPAs. And we have a number of goals, but two main goals are to have online resources that that the public will be able to go to and see games and other, have links to other resources. We're also going to have a financial literacy fair that everyone is invited to on May 3rd, 2014. And if you want to know more information, you could email me at Karen@walterthevault.com. That's WalterTheVault.com.
Do you know about Walter's cousin? Okay, Walter has a cousin, Wally the Offshore Vault, and he's a little toy in my house.
So mark your calendars. We want you all to come to our community fair. You're funny.
All right, so in terms of, I know this is a little off the topic,
Yeah.
but in terms of, do you guys do also asset protection work too? Because I think with all this collection stuff, I'm sure that people are scared to death about maintaining whatever they have left. I guess what you do as far as asset protection is you try to get them out of the jam.
Right. Once they have once they already have the tax problem, we come in and help with the collection alternatives.
So what are the different kinds of financial literacy things that we didn't discuss as of yet?
Sure. So children need to learn the basics. What money can and can't buy. And if you go to WalterTheVault.com, we have or YouTube, we have two cute videos. One that shows what money can buy and one that shows what money can't buy. Love, friendship, health, those kinds of things. We want to teach responsible
Politicians.
we want to teach responsible spending, strategies for saving, the fundamentals of charity.
So when I go into YouTube, what do I type in to get to that video?
Walter the Vault, episode 1 and episode 2.
Oh, there you go.
And we have a very cute song that was produced by Josh Citrin, who produced the Dora the Explorer song.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. We also have an allowance chart that goes with the bank, so the children can figure out what it is they want to buy, how much it will cost, and how much they have. And it's a perpetual calendar, so you could start in November, and let's say you get $2 every Sunday. You could put a sticker every time your parents give you an allowance, and every time they don't, there's either a question mark or a big X. And you could use a sticker or you could use dry erase markers. So the children can keep track.
Can the parents give IOUs?
And both of these items are being produced, and we're working on getting them. We already have a potential deal with Walmart.com. So you'll be able to buy all of these things along with a book. We have a series of books coming out that, again, teach children about money. We have a number of songs that teach these lessons. And I think it's interesting because everyone knows of a child who throws a tantrum whenever they see something they want. They're in the store and they say, "Mommy, Mommy, I want this, I want this." So using that chart, moneyasYouGrow.org, we have taken each of the lessons and made them into a song. I'm not going to sing, but one of the things is you may have to wait before you buy. So here's this child having a tantrum, and maybe wouldn't it be great if he could sing the song, "When we see things we want to buy, I want it now," we sometimes cry. But even though they may look great, the final sale may have to wait. We also have a song about making choices. Children 6 to 10 understand that they have to make choices before they spend the money. So before you spend it, you must choose exactly how much cash to use, because once you spend it in the store, it's not your money anymore.
And sort of along those lines, I guess I have to dedicate the following to our father, Bob Oliver, and David Krauss, which is the famous expression, the bitterness of poor quality outlasts the sweetness of low price.
And my father always said, you have a problem if there's too much money after the month, left after the month.
That's a problem?
No.
No, I'm sorry. If you have
No, you always...
the other way around.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, let's wait a second. You have a problem
much
if there's
month.
too much
Too much
month
month.
after the money.
Right, too much month after the money.
Thank you.
Oh,
Too much
yeah.
month. I'm sorry, I was backwards.
You know, so this is kind of interesting because I wrote a book called Sasha the Biz Kid.
You're kidding, I didn't even know
and,
that.
And it's about sort of overcoming business adversity and overcoming sort of the obstacles that are presented by, sort of the challenges of everyday business. So off air we have to talk about that. Maybe we'll package this in,
But I think-
in that little seminar with the 11-year-olds.
So you must have some money tips. My key money tips are always spend less than you earn or than you have, and get into the habit of saving. Put your money into some kind of container and watch it grow.
I'm calling Congress. They don't know these. They've never heard of these things. So in the few minutes that we have left, let's just talk a little bit about your firm. What are the different kinds of cases that you work on, and what are the things that you guys do?
So we handle tax dispute resolution. We handle anything from IRS and New York State audits, things relating to responsible person assessments, federal and state collection issues, liens, levies, seizures, installment agreements, innocent spouse claims, IRS appeals, New York State residency audits, sales and use tax audits, and non-filing.
That's basically all the ills of the world of tax.
What is a responsible person assessment?
Well, basically, you can have someone who perhaps has a small business or even a large business. If the business is unable to pay all of their payroll taxes, or in New York State, for example, and it does not pay all their sales tax, those taxes can flow through to the responsible person. And an individual.
You mean the owners? The owners?
The owners, for example.
I see the code word is owners.
There's basically a bunch of factors that the state or the IRS will look at in many of these cases to see whether the person is responsible or not. But then they can come after the individual. Certainly for sales tax, they can come after the individual for the full amount of tax, interest, and penalties. And right now, if penalties are assessed, interest is at 14.5% on that.
Ooh, that's nasty. Well, just for the audience out there, the reason why sales tax is personal in terms of responsibilities, because that you're really collecting that in trust for the government. So it was really never your money to begin with. You were supposed to kind of segregate it out and keep it on the side. So if you kind of commingled it with your own, you took from the government. They really hate sharing.
That's exactly right. If you've collected the sales tax but failed to send it on to New York State, basically you've stolen from the state. And
they hate that.
They certainly don't like that. And similar with the payroll tax, I mean, basically the business is withholding money that they're going to then send to the IRS or to New York State, so that when you go to pay your taxes, when a taxpayer goes and files his, he's got his W-2 showing a certain amount of that tax was already sent in. If the business owner never really sent that money in, the individual doesn't have to worry about it, but the owner of the business, the person who should have been sending it in on the employee's behalf, has to really worry about that, because they're going to be liable for that.
Wow. Real fast, because this hour of radio just flew by, what are the typical scenarios that small business owners genuinely find themselves in first as far as tax problems? Is it sales tax? Is it income tax? What do they usually get jammed up on?
So what we see is, certainly during a recession, people might not pay their payroll taxes because they don't have the cash flow that they once had. Business is slow, and they figure, it'll pick up. So sometimes they don't pay their payroll taxes, which is not the best. They think a week later, a month later, things will get better, and all of a sudden they're in a deep hole, and they owe a lot of money to the government, and it's personal. They don't even realize that it flows through to them personally, And if they go out of business, they're still going to be liable for it. And if they file for bankruptcy, they may still be liable for it.
Well, one trend that I learned at your seminar was when the people from New York State said that every time they see a tax problem now, they're going to try to link it to a criminal problem, which I thought was very scary because they said, like, or a criminal problem, every criminal problem is a tax problem. So in other words, if they bust the guy for making counterfeit handbags on Fifth Avenue, they're going to also get them for like unreported sales tax and some other stuff. So they're going to try to get that. Wow. Okay. Everybody out there who's listening, I hope you enjoyed this show because it went really fast for me. So to wrap this up, if you missed the show and you're just catching it, you'll catch it on YouTube when we replay this, and it's up there 24/7. Quick, Karen Tenenbaum, give us your contact information and all that good stuff in the next 1 minute.
Sure. Go to litaxattorney.com or walterthevault.com.
All right. And
You can reach me at the same website, or my email is ycort, that's YCORT, at litaxattorney.com.
see, I always ask why court also, but why
Yeah.
court?
And I'm Kay Tenenbaum, KTENENBAUM at litaxattorney.com.
All right, folks, thanks for listening. This is Rich Solomon, Paul Solomon, and if you want to get in touch with us, TCBRadioWCWP at yahoo.com, and if you want to catch us on YouTube, go to the little search box in YouTube where the magnifying glass is and type in TCB Radio WCWP. And don't take any suggestions. Just type it in, no periods, no spaces, and you'll catch all the numerous past shows that we've had. We have a very, very cool growing collection of stuff. This is now going to join that, and we'll be seeing you in a week. And thank you, as always, for being part of our radio family.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Oh, you guys are great. We'll see you all in a week. Stay safe. And I never say this on sign-off, but don't forget to pay your taxes. See you soon.
Thank you.
What I really need, some kind of affection. All that I have is this little